Michael Mason, Carnivore. It's just not something I'm prepared to accept. It was refreshing to speak with Michael tonight. His online video content is both inspiring and educational. From his Kung Fu beginnings as a child to a lifelong journey of human development, he has constantly experimented on himself and now has that pinnacle of sweet spots in mind, body, and spirit. Encompassing the teachings of people like Patrick Mckeown, Professor Andrwe Huberman, and Dr. Shawn Baker, he has learned to eat well, train smart, and breathe in a functional way. Michael is now running retreats in the United Kingdom. We had a great laugh when he told the story of running to the Laird of Stirling, the nephew of Sir David Stirling, founder of the SAS, 22nd Special Air Service. Strap in and get ready to grow your brain, fix your breathing, and learn some brilliant ideas from a very humble, and I must say, a true gentleman, Michael Mason. You can find Michael on Insta at Mason Survival. Thanks for watching. Hi, thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former Special Forces operator, and check out my new project for 2023 at hownottodie.com.au, where I've combined all my Special Forces training and police officer experience to help others. Thanks for watching. And we're live. Welcome to the Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast, and welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on, Michael Mason.
You're welcome. Nice.
Look, it was lovely chatting with you just before, and it really is. I mean that when I get to chat with a guest before we record, because it is so organic, and we're just quickly getting to know each other. And it amazes me, Michael, that I see you on the socials. You're on the other side of the world, literally, but we get to connect here and share some common ground, which is, I think, a true testament to the modern world, that we can do that and share that knowledge. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, I think it's, I for one, getting used to this whole process of talking to people, throughout the world, and getting used to being confident in talking in this environment. And now now I'm starting to see, let's say, you as a real person, not someone behind a screen, because in the beginning it was like someone's behind the screen, and it just, to me, it just felt a little bit unnatural, even though people said, oh, that was really natural.
100%, 100%. Even yesterday, I've got a guy in the UK that was former SBS, I think, but he wants to come on, but he's a bit afraid about being in front of the camera. And I said to him, literally, it's just you and I having a chat, which seems to come off so popular for people who watch this show. And that may be where people resonate. I'm asking questions that hopefully they want the answers to as well. I was always taught in the army, if you're thinking it, probably someone else is thinking it too. So please ask the stupid question. So I'll have a crack at asking some smart questions, maybe some stupid ones as well. Look, quick background. I do it in the intro anyway beforehand, but for the people listening, the founder of the Mason Survival Protocol, which I love the idea of. You've got a 10-year head start on me. You're 59, I'm 49, if those stats are still correct. And I love that you do the carnivore retreats in the Scottish Highlands and the breathwork, the nutrition strength. It's the whole package. What got you into this, Michael? What started your journey towards where you are in 2023 in this place?
Well, I think, I suppose really my journey in terms of, although I didn't understand it then, let's call it human development.
Right.
Was when I started doing Kung Fu, and that was when I was 9 years old. That was in 1970. That was in 1973.
That's when I was born.
And that was in the well, it was a good year. So. And then, there was two programs. There was Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee and Kung Fu with David Carradine. And I saw this program. It was on a Friday night with David Carradine, Kung Fu. And it was like, fuck, wow. It's like, this is to me, well, then it was magical, because we didn't have the internet. We didn't have videos. We had programs that came on once a week, and you had to wait a week before you saw the next one, and if there was like another season, you'd have to wait another year. And so you're already in that sort of like excited mode, and just like you couldn't wait for the next. and then you play the games in school, whatever programs they were. There was another program, so that got me in terms of, let's say, that type of human development. But there was another program that came out in I think it was in the 1960s, and it was called The Champions.
Oh wow.
And it was about these three people, just normal sort of everyday people who were in a plane. The plane crashed in Tibet.
Yep.
And they were rescued by these monks and given special powers. And then they went to work for this organization in Geneva, in Switzerland. And they went out to the world to, they had all these magical powers. And as a kid, it was like, wow, so one of the reasons I had this affinity for wanting to go to the mountains and in Switzerland and skiing was that this office that they had in Geneva, overlooked the mountains in Switzerland. And it was like, as a kid, it was like that was I suppose the things that got me on to term, I wanted to be like them.
Yeah, I love that inquisitiveness. That's a classic kid to develop, and I love the term you've coined, human development. But there's pure inquisitiveness from happiness and learning at a young age.
And I think the thing is that, I think today we call stuff like human development as if it's like a separate thing to being a human, when human development is what we are. We develop as human, but people like now look at it as we do human development courses and stuff like that. And it's become sort of separated from, well, we are human. That's how we are evolving day by day.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does. I mean, here is human development. I'm learning from you, and the people are learning from this conversation. And after this, just that small snippet of your inquisitiveness, your playfulness to allow that imagination to go there straight up. People that might take people back and go, oh, that's right, and that may bring us in some more development, some more synapse growth for them as well.
Yeah, and I think with all of that, let's get back to like the programs that I watch. Nowadays we don't, nowadays we download stuff in a weekend. We don't sleep because of it, because I downloaded, I watched a box set a couple of weeks ago, and I don't really, it's very, very rare that I do it, but it was a series that I sort of like enjoy. And it's like that Netflix has like got you. It's like it's got you hooked.
Yep.
And I like to sort of like almost like experiment with that, or just to see why is that program making you want to sort of like watch it? Why, all of that stuff. But then we couldn't, and so I suppose what I'm trying to say is that inquisitiveness. We don't have that time of being inquisitive because we've got that instant gratification all the time. We don't have that week to think. We don't have that week to think about, oh, do you remember that move you saw in Kung Fu or The Champions when he took his arm and he threw him? Oh, yeah, let's play that.
Yeah.
Because by the time you've got to that, you've seen the series.
Yeah.
And if that, yeah.
You don't get to process it. You don't get to process with your friends, play. You're waiting for the week. And then it's almost like you're playing out what if he does this? What if he does that? In the next episode as well, it's like I said, it's given to us on a platter. And I must confess, I've downloaded strength and exercise programs, hit pay, hit downloaded, never done them again.
Yeah.
Versus when I went to a coach like yourself, physically there, you teach me a bit one week, you teach me a bit another week, and so on and so on. I've done other ones that I've followed, but that instant gratification, it's a strange place to be. I agree, Michael.
And with clients that I've had, one-to-one coaching, when I was doing more of real life sort of stuff, it's we've done 45 minutes. They want that tick. They want that tick in the box experience. I've done my training for today.
Yep.
So they can go and do something else, whether it's like eat crap, drink crap, or whatever. Yep. But it said, and there's, to a degree, there's like, let's say, nothing wrong with that. but it doesn't build upon, you know, layers and layers of knowledge, experience, you know, failure, all these things that you learn when you're training, whatever you're training. They just want to get that instant hit. I've done my 45 minutes, or I've done my hour. My heart rate has this. They show me the graph. I don't care. You know, it's, you're not, I was going to say Lance Armstrong, but you're not sort of that top sort of like tier sort of like athletes where, do you really need to know what you're, you know, just, yeah.
It's difficult for, I'm guessing from what I've seen and with you now, it's difficult for a teacher to do that, because we love to teach and love people to learn, rather than just ticking the box. It does bring me to your Mason survival protocol, though. I'm probably going to go the slow rep part down the track, but breathwork, nutrition, strength. I often say to people, and I don't do it so much anymore, the coaching, I really push the how not to die guy stuff. It's my direction now. But I used to say to people, I teach sleep, stress, and human nutrition, because the nutrition was relatively useless without fixing this stuff, and the exercise was a small part as well. As a personal trainer, you seem to have done the whole thing as well: breathwork, nutrition, strength. When in your years, your wisdom, did you realize that there was more to it than just lifting weights, and lifting weights heavy and maybe fast, and more than maybe just nutrition? There was a bit more to it, and a more holistic approach is required.
Well, I think, I mean, that has just sort of come and evolved over the years. But I sort of like realized, you know, when I started practicing martial arts as a kid,
Right.
and was, you know, it's those three pillars: it's mind, body, and spirit.
Love it.
So whatever you want to call it. And again, you know, when you talk about mind, body, and spirit, when you talk about holistic, that word holistic, to a lot of people that conjures up, let's call it some woo-woo connotations.
100%.
Or you know, and it's just, we've got to eat well, we've got to train, you know, smartly, and we've got to learn how to sort of be able to control, or learn how to breathe in a more, you know, functional way. And so whatever you want to call it, you know, mind, but, you know, mind, body, spirit, that's you know, that's what it is. I mean, you can do as much training as you want, but if you've got dysfunctional sleep because of dysfunctional breathing, and you're eating shit, you know, you can't out train a bad diet.
No.
Also, you know, also it's like you can be eating like the greatest diet in the world, you know, the most nutritionally dense, perfect food, but if you're not moving, you know, if you're not moving, you're not moving. You know, we're humans, and if you're not, you know, sleep, okay, you may sleep better because your diet is better. Yep. But if there is still some dysfunction, because let's say with breathing, it's automatic. Yep. We're not taught how to breathe better. We're not taught how to breathe. Okay, you've got a bit of dysfunction. You know, you've got a bit of dysfunction there. You know, try this and learn how to do, you know, let's call it functional breathing.
Yeah.
You know, and that goes into, you know, meditation, and then you start getting, again, all those sort of like woo-woo sort of connotations. But once you take all that away and you bring it back to the sort of like, let's call it the truth, you know, the actual science is like, oh, that's why we do that. That's what happens when you breathe through the nose.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you do some practices like on breathing, etc., etc.
Yeah. 100%.
And so what I try to do is I try to sort of take the veils of mysticism away from everything, so it makes it more accessible. And again, you know, training in traditional martial arts, you know, studied in Japan, where it's so formal and so layered and bound up with mysticism, which is what I started it for, because but that stops people from entering the door, because and people sort of end up monetizing that part, that, you know, that part of it, without giving the knowledge behind it. Okay, just do this, but why?
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
That's okay for a while, but there's people in martial arts who've been studying for 30, 40, 50 years and still don't know why they're doing something.
No, and in a real fight, really get their head caved in.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to the direction you're going there, but the logic behind eating well, the logic behind training smart, the logic behind breathing and function. When I say logic, I mean science. People like Patrick Mckeown, Dr. Huberman, for all those things. I can't remember the carnivore surgeon that you probably know the name of, but very logical stuff. But as a listener, we've sort of got to this point, and they're going, "Well, what does this sort of look like?" Because we've touched on we got a few little points to bring in. What does your slow rep series look like? Because we were talking about exercise, and then we'll unwind the breath work and the nutrition. But if someone's coming to you and looking at your exercise programs, and I'm guessing it's not just that, what does that look like when you train or you're training for clients as well?
So again, with the slow rep exercises, I mean, that comes again from my training in martial arts, specifically training in qigong and tai chi, where everything is done slowly to create sort of let's call it a flowing type of energy.
Nice.
But they would also train with qigong, they would train with weights, and they would hold positions in, let's call it a stress position, and they would hold those positions. So they had to control the breath. They had to control that mindset of fuck, when that gritted teeth.
Yep.
So,
and you're almost working against yourself there, Michael. So that's why you're getting the mindfulness and the training smart, the controlling that part.
So when people ask me, like, well, like, why do you have that sort of poker face? I'm trying just to control that urge to think, fuck, this is. And again, there's one influencer, I won't even mention his name, but there's one influencer who's got a huge following, and I like the stuff that he does, but he puts so much effort into his facial expression, and I just think, I get that, but I like to work in an opposite way, in terms of, I suppose it always gets down to sort of like martial arts and in this combat. I'm not showing you how I'm feeling, and it's not an ego thing.
No.
It is on one respect, but it's helping me control internally the diaphragm, the muscles surrounding that, because if I can control that, I'm just as a unit, just much stronger.
Absolutely.
So it's sort of like sort of like layered. There's lots of it's a big onion, lots of skins to peel off, and to sort of, and again with me, it's my own sort of like self discovery. But by slowing things down, especially with a load, and in an extended or half extended position, you've got to recruit all the musculature to be able to control it. You can do everything. Anyone can do everything fast.
Yes.
If you can do fast, fast and shit is still shit. But to do it sort of slowly, you're having to recruit all the things. Let's say you're holding something out with your shoulder, and that whole mind body connection is that you're then controlling the breath, and it's just one unit. There's not different parts. I'm not working my arms today. I'm working everything.
And your mind as well.
Yeah. And again, with that, that's the thing that people don't see. That's the thing that people just think, oh, that's slow. Oh, I can do that with 16 kilos. They think they can do it with 16 kilos, but that's not the explaining that is really, really difficult. So some get it, most people don't. But then that's part of the, let's call it the hidden mystery. You've got to find out yourself. You've got to do it. When people ask me, well, what does it feel like? I want to say, well, try it.
Yeah.
You can try it yourself.
Yeah.
And that's yeah.
100%. The train smart as we kicked off this part, but there is a doctor, emergency room doctor, around about 6 years ago. He put out a slow protocol, and zero injuries in any of their patients because he did it with elderly population, and they would do one set, a 60-second set, 30 seconds. One concentric or eccentric, and 30 seconds concentric or eccentric. I can't remember his name, unfortunately. Really interesting cat, but no injuries. And I tried it, and it's hard. But what it did give me was mental toughness, because when you said train smart, Michael, and I love the wisdom you got there. You got 10 years on me. When I was 16, 18, 20, winning those competitions, I would end up in the hospital at the emergency room every 2 to 3 months with an injury of some kind, forever blowing a costovertebral joint, doing this, doing that. And that's just retarded looking back. But if me at 49 could teach me a smarter way to train smart, then the longevity is huge. And I think that's what people are looking for now. And it's changed so much since we lifted. I mean, you were even pre-Dorian Yates days, but the slow training, you've even evolved to mouth taping, and that's a huge step forwards. And I remember when the masks came out. They used to call them altitude masks. Now they call them a different name. I forgot. You might know what they're called.
I know what they are, but
yeah,
but I don't know if
we used to so it was an altitude training simulator, and then the science came out. No, you're just breathing through a straw, and it wasn't good for many people. What it was good for was me. I'm a firefighter. I have to control. I've got a certain amount of air in that tank behind me to do the job. What is great for special forces guys, they're breathing through gas masks. It's great for people that it's going to teach them to calm and control their breathing, and you're doing that just by taping your mouth shut. I remember the first time I saw you do it on the video, and I thought, gee, I could see the struggle on your face, Michael, and that was training your brain to push your limit versus your body. And I thought it was so clever. Would you like to talk the people through mouth taping and what that brings you?
So I'll go back to the beginning with mouth taping. I've always had, ever since I was a kid, let's call it dysfunctional sleep.
Wow.
I'd wake up. I'd always wake up with nightmares. They were always sort of like reoccurring sort of stuff. Wake up in a panic. Never talked to anyone about it, and I'm really pleased that I didn't, because then they would maybe as a kid, oh, we'll give you this, we'll give you that to help you sleep, and that's another sort of rabbit hole. So, and I was well known for my dreams, especially when I used to go on these martial arts seminars, when I used to go and train in Japan.
Wow.
Because people would hear me in the room, and I'll be having these fights in my dreams, waking up in panics. And then I suppose I was like looking for a mystical solution, a mystical sort of like justification.
Yeah.
I'm fighting with all my demons and what have you, and it's like I've gone into another realm, and and that's what I think I told myself. But I could never get really sort of like good sleep. I've been teetotal since I was like 22.
Wow.
So I haven't been able to sort of like use any sort of like alcohol or any other. When I say I haven't used alcohol, I haven't taken any drugs or any chemicals since then. Anyway, so I haven't used that to help me sleep. Anyway, so I just got used to it, and it was sometimes it was like pretty sort of like rough. Anyway, so I think it was 3-4 years ago, I was watching something on YouTube, and I saw this guy. I follow him on Instagram called Mike Mutzel, and he was talking about taping your mouth going to sleep.
Yep.
Because I didn't realize at the time that I was a mouth breather.
Yep.
And when you're a mouth breather, what happens is that your mouth opens when you're asleep. the jaw retracts back, it constricts the throat, so you end up ending up with a sleep apnea where you're not breathing. There's a buildup of carbon dioxide, and what that does, that induces that panic. So if you're
Of
doing this,
course.
if you're doing this within a dream, with sleeping, and you're dreaming, you're going to end up dreaming. And I didn't know this,
No.
so I started doing it. Since that day, I think there's probably been 4 years. I think there's been 5 days that I haven't taped my mouth.
Wow.
I sleep pretty much all the way through.
Yep.
I don't wake up with any panics. Even if I do wake up, I don't wake up with that constriction, like I'm dreaming that I can't breathe, or I'm drowning, or I can't run fast enough. I feel like I'm running in glue. And all of a sudden, I remember talking to my sensei in Japan, about these dreams, and he was giving me these mysterious, mystical answers, and
Yep.
and immediately, it stopped. So that again started my journey into delving deeper about, what's this actually sort of doing? Why was I having the dreams? Why has this now stopped? And so getting on to when I'm training with tape, I'm doing it with the mouth, just to emphasize, just to show people that my mouth is keep, because if I didn't have it, people wouldn't see that, they wouldn't ask the questions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, and that's, that is the reason. So when you by breathing through the nose, you're controlling the breath in and you're controlling the breath out. And by controlling the breath out, there ends up being more of a carbon dioxide, especially when you do breath holds, carbon dioxide buildup.
Yep.
Carbon dioxide is what induces that panic.
Yep.
So if you can get used to that buildup, if you can slowly get used to that sort of like, oh, it's a bit of a panic here, and I can get used to it. You get used to that carbon dioxide buildup, but also that carbon dioxide buildup helps then to release more oxygen from the blood hemoglobin.
Oh, wow.
So then we're getting into real altitude training.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
altitude training
there is a
is
benefit
breathing.
crossover.
So yeah. So and then when you do it, you get more sort of like breath holding. You then stimulate the spleen to release its stores of oxygen. I mean, the spleen, I think, holds about 8% of
the blood.
Of oxygen. So all of a sudden, it's like, that's why I'm doing that. And then you also start to understand that nasal breathing stimulates more nitric oxide in the parasinus. That then is a vasodilator, which opens up blood vessels, which opens up the lungs. So there's more oxygen exchange. So you feel better. So you can wrap this up in any type of mystical way that you want.
Yeah.
But that is the science. And getting on to that, let's say excuse me, I'm just going to shut the door because my dog's in and out.
No bother. That's amazing with the nitric oxide and oxygenation that you talked about there. It's like a vicious circle because you breathe through your nose is going to get all blocked up.
And the thing is that that's what people think. Oh, but it doesn't, because it actually clears the nose, it clears the sinus.
Yeah.
And it's so just getting back onto, let's say, the mystical stuff. So one of my breathing practices is on breathing. Breathe in through the nose, and then on the exhale, making an om sound, a humming sound.
Humming, yeah.
Now, again, you tell people, I'll do omming. Ooh, it's a bit woo-woo. But what omming does is that it produces up to 15 times more nitric oxide in the parasinus. There's papers on that. Is
that stimulation of the vagus? So I know that humming, singing stimulates the vagus nerve, gargling as well. We can't do that forever. But is that what you're talking about? There's a vagus nerve effect, or are they separate?
Well, no, so it would all that would all be connected, because stimulation of the vagus nerve stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system,
Yeah.
so it's calming everything down.
Yeah.
So there's times when you want, I think it's with, I don't do it that often, you breathe through the left nostril,
Yep.
it stimulates the parasinus.
Yep.
You breathe through the right nostril, it stimulates the sympathetic nervous system.
Yep.
So that's when you have the alternate
Yeah, I've heard of the
breathing.
alternating before, but I haven't. I never did the single one. Yeah.
So then that helps to sort of balance things out. I mean, again, it's like all of this. There's so, it's how deep do you want to go with, like, into the, just with one, with one element. But
I can see.
so I just
I can see how. Excuse me. I can see how you've originated that from martial arts, because what you're talking about with your slow training and then mouth taping is you're teaching yourself to be calm under chaos. And I can relate that back to the special forces. We're going to blow through the door and go in all guns blazing, but we're super chilled because we taught ourselves to calm that down. So it's brilliant that you're learning really a warrior tactic, warrior habit, warrior skill set, and you're applying it in the modern day environment through exercise, and then also with your breath work as well.
Yeah, and again, with all of this has been my own, studied martial arts pretty much all my life. Studied, very, very high level with a true grandmaster. And I know that sort of sounds a bit sort of like, whatever it sounds like yesterday, but we weren't taught, I say we weren't taught some of this deeper stuff, because it was kept, it was too sort of like mystical. When you get what and it's well, hold on a minute. Well, there's a paper on there's some science there. You can call it whatever so a lot of this, I found out for myself, my own. That's part of the that's part of the journey.
Yeah.
But I just like to sort of like cut away all the cut away all the crap. How do I sleep better, Mike? Well, if you know that you're a mouth breather, put some tape on your mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's give a simple solution. This is what I do.
I think maybe that's how we started this conversation. I was very thankful for the modern world to be able to get to meet you for tonight. And again, the modern world, you've spoken on 3 levels on breathwork that top scientists in the world speak to. It's not just Mike, a guy in the UK, talking about this how you breathe, or some grandmaster saying here's some secrets. There's actually some real science behind it. And straight away, and again, I remember Shawn Baker, the carnivore surgeon, one of the first carnivore successes out there. He said back when he was at medical school, he had to go to the library, get the number, the Dewey Decimal Number, go to the shelf, get the book. Now he's got 100 tabs open on his computer. Look at the accessibility of knowledge. And you're peeling those away that you've done, peeling away the grandmaster stuff to actually nail in on some logic there is super helpful, and can help us shortcut those years of learning, because really the 10-year-old you learning Kung Fu would have done great with a little bit of mouth taping when he was sleeping, because he would have not had those dreams, and he would have been a calmer self, and who knows where you'd end up now.
Well, interestingly, with that breath work, there was I think he was a journalist. It was in about the 1880s. I'm just trying to think of his name. I think his name was Caitlin, and he wrote a book called "Shut Your Mouth."
Right.
And this was in the 1880s, and he traveled North America, and he stayed with the indigenous tribes there.
Oh wow.
And one of the things that he noticed, because he wrote about it in his book, that they were beautiful, but they had straight jaws. He noticed that the mothers after with the newborn babies, they were always making sure they were closing their mouth when they were going to sleep. It just as a natural
Oh, wow.
especially after feeding.
Wow.
So he noticed all this, because even then he also noticed that the people in the West, that the jaws were getting
Weaker.
smaller, getting weaker, going back.
Mm.
And then that gets on into dentistry, why now people have to have teeth taken out because the jaw has got small, but the
Absolutely.
teeth are still sort of there. So that was even in the the 1880s. So it's not, none of this stuff is new. It's just I suppose we're getting back to like human development. It was just human. This is what they did.
Well, that's
Um,
intriguing. You're saying about some actual actions versus Weston A. Price, who studied more indigenous populations than anybody else and found that exactly what you said, but he only studied them. For instance, the Maori had the best teeth in the world from my country. But you're saying he would actually see what those indigenous tribes did. What an
yeah,
action step, because I've read every Weston A. Price thing there is, but I never heard about just closing a baby's mouth. What a clever idea. And it gives us actual knowledge about what we can do going forwards as well.
yeah, because it was like you're just training them, because it's automatic to breathe through air. We can breathe through the mouth, we can breathe through the nose.
Yeah.
But if we're not sort of given that direction, like as it says, like shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I
I'm
think I'm
stunned.
sure it's Caitlin. But I think if you search "shut your mouth," I'm sure it's Caitlin.
I'll
I mean,
definitely put it in the I'll definitely put it in the
just
show
getting
notes.
back to what you were talking about, with some of the doctors and some of the scientists
Yes.
who talk about this stuff. I'm not academic. I have sweet FA when it comes to qualifications. I don't remember. I read stuff and I forget it almost immediately. I can't recall stuff. I I would say that I'm not a good debater at all. I just take stuff and think, well, that works, and I suppose in a way I just internalize it.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's because some of these guys on YouTube, some of the big names, I listen to them and I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They can talk very well to each other,
Yeah.
but let's say to people to people like me, I'm thinking, what? But I don't understand what you're talking. But they're enjoying the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, that's why I like just to cut away all the get back to the
All the faff, all the fluff, and that's one of the reasons I got you on the show, Mike, to present your knowledge. And with any guest, I'm there to share their journey and their knowledge, with the guests. Sorry, the with the audience. However, you do seem to cut through that. You show that with your videos. You show it clearly with your voiceovers, and exactly that. You communicate in such a way that a lot of people, and at 120,000 followers, clearly it's successful because you're communicating to a lot of people. Well, they say that's why Donald Trump had so many supporters, because he communicated at such a not low, but to the biggest masses. But you definitely do that, but you don't come across uneducated, as you intimated there. You come across very clever. I'd like to then pick your brains on, carnivore nutrition. What are you teaching there? What's your take on nutrition for human development, and where are you at now?
So and again, with let's call it with carnivore nutrition, a lot of people have come into let's say carnivore or keto because they were sick.
Right.
They were diabetic, they were obese, they had sick cardiovascular disease. They had some sort of
Autoimmune.
they had yeah, etc. I've come into it because it's just been involvement of my going down the rabbit hole with how can I eat, what's better. I also like food. I also like eating tasty sort of stuff. And I've gone the whole sort of spectrum. I've been vegetarian. I tried that for 3 years. I was vegan for the last 6 months of it. I've done all the juicing, the protein, carbohydrate, combining all the various, and then it just started to evolve. And I've never liked vegetables. I hated them as a kid. And I say it, often on some of the podcasts, is that, that image that I remember just of Popeye. And I never got it with Popeye, because it's like he was eating spinach, smoking a pipe. And I'm just thinking, I was just more of like a Desperate Dan sort of guy with a cow pie with the horns out of the, that was more me. So the nutrition part has just come evolving, and also seeing how I, as I got older, how things were working before and didn't really work so well, especially when I got into my 30s.
Yeah.
When you're a teenager in your 20s, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Like you say, you can batter your body recovers. But as soon as you start, it starts to change. And I've always been, I always loved. I remember, even like as a kid, I remember just eating steak. It's kind of thing like, I feel really, I like, I like eating meat. I didn't think of it in that way, but I like it. When we used to go on holidays when I was a kid, the only thing I would eat was be steak and chips. And it was, I just loved it. So it's, my nutrition has evolved from doing, reading about Atkins like 20-25 years ago, being sort of like low carb, and then just changing then paleo came around, and I love that. But then there's landmines within that, because you can still eat shit, even though it's good quality, but you can still overload on things like, agave syrup is paleo. Well, maple syrup is paleo.
Yeah.
Well, it's okay, but you put that, you put that with some cream, and you make some almond flour and coconut flour pancakes. So this is fantastic, tastes delicious, but maybe that isn't such a a great thing, because I know that I would just overeat on that.
And on that, I think as a human being, you're programmed to overeat if it's available, because we don't know when the next meal is coming. So fair enough. But in this, so many people say in this era of food availability, well, the next meal is always going to come. So we've got to be very clever about how we're doing it, which is where we're going with you.
And so and then sort of evolving just to eating less vegetables, more meat, and it's just sort of evolved. And then again, the more you end up sort of studying about, as we get older, the most important thing we can do is hold on to the muscle mass that we've got.
Yep.
Build it if we can.
Yep.
It's no good getting to 65 and think, I've got to start building. Okay, maybe that's where you are. Maybe you can still sort of like build, but you have to sort of start now, wherever you are.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be frail. I don't want to be weak. I don't want to be looked after. And I want to be doing all this stuff that I enjoy doing, being physical, not for the next 10 years, for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I want to be doing it. If I was to die on a mountain, I'm skiing down, whatever age I'm doing something that I enjoy, then that to me would be, sort of like, perfect. I don't want to end up being weak. And that, again, not from an ego or alpha perspective, just from a quality of life. And why should there be any restriction on us as human beings as we get older? sure, I may not be able to do the stuff that I could do 20 years ago or whatever, but why should there be any restriction?
I
Because
agree.
that's what that's what I ask, myself, why should there? And that's the thing that pushes me, because I'm 59, but I have no sort of concept of what that actually really sort of like, because I compare myself, even like at 39, I think, I look at someone who's 39, that's old. I'm thinking, oh, Mike, you're 20 years older than that. But, so if I compare myself with like someone at 30, I think, oh, shit, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it annoys me, but
Yeah.
I like that thing because that's a little bit of a a good driver for me.
It really is. And I love you said about being able to do those things. Dr. Ken Ford, he talks about health span versus lifespan. You got these lifespan people who do calorie restriction because they want to live forever. I don't know. There's a name for them, but he's like, they're weak and frail and puny when he'd rather have health span and actually be able to be functional. And one of the most best indicators of health span, I can't quite put my finger on what the adjective would be, but your ability to get up off the ground, to get down to the ground and up off the ground is the most important thing as you age. And that'll be for the grandkids and be for yourself, of course. But going out skiing down an alpine run in your 80s or 90s, whatever, would be brilliant. It's like the goat herders and the indigenous populations at 90, 95 years old. They're still super functional. And I remember being in the gym years ago hearing that after the age of 30 you lose half a kilo of muscle a year. Well, that wasn't correct. It was a correct study, but it was only if you don't use it. So if you
Yeah.
use it, you don't lose it, which you absolutely nailed. You need to maintain your muscle and your vitality now.
And and with that, the best way to do that is to eat well sourced animal protein.
Yep.
Let's call it in my opinion.
Yep.
And it's just not an opinion, because it's my anecdotal experience.
Yep.
I'm sort of, let's call it, I'm proving it to myself.
Yep.
That this way of living, this way of eating a high protein, animal based, carnivore, meat based, whatever you want to call it, works extremely well for me in terms of strength, mass, and I suppose more importantly, resilience to come back from not just a physical knock, but any type of mental knock. And then that goes on to, that helps me sleep better.
Yeah.
And then everything's interconnected. I don't feel shit the next day because I've got some sort of food hangover because I've eaten crap, and which for most people, they're in that constant hangover of eating. Well, you can call it a shit lifestyle, but eating crap every single day. They get used to feeling like that. They get used to feeling all the stomach issues, all the bowel issues, all the mental issues, and they're used to it. That they've got used to feeling like shit,
and they don't know what normal feels like, do they?
No, and it's just not something that I'm prepared to, accept.
I like that.
They get that instant gratification from eating something, a donut makes them feel good then, and then it's like a drug. Then they needed to eat more and more and more to feel good, but then feel bad as the after effects to that.
100%. I just need to write that part down because it could be the title. Look, you said based on first was your opinion, you said, and then you said it's based on your anecdotal and your experience. You're 59 years old, you've got the muscle, you got the strength, you got the mass. For the listeners out there, because I know you've probably seen them, Dr. Gabrielle Lyons, a lot younger than you, and very educated woman. She states that protein is probably one of the most important things you can do. And the amounts, again, for the listeners, is 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight or 2 grams per kilo body weight. One person who's been on the show, Professor Bill Campbell, his one role in life, in his lab, one role in life is studying female body composition. That's it. He's the world's expert on it. And a female needs 1.8 grams per kilo body weight. People don't realize the protein need. Really, it helped us evolve. And if they want to then have something compare to the recommended daily allowance, the recommended daily allowance of protein is 0.8 grams per kilo body weight. That was invented for World War II to stop soldiers being sick. It was the minimum that the soldiers wouldn't get sick. So if you, listeners out there, you want to stick to the minimum not to get sick, you're just getting by at the very least. So we're throwing some numbers out there, and I love we've sort of gone both. We've gone the practical side at 59 years old, what you embody, literally that play on words, and then the technical side is backed up by every scientist out there. Mike, absolutely brilliant. Because I did my research originally on you, but then I quickly pulled this off, and your Instagram is brilliant. What do you do with the carnivore retreats? I'm really intrigued there.
So that came around. It was something that I've been trying to do for a number of years in different guises. First, when I was in Switzerland, you coming in? Come on, come on.
Oh, nice one.
Come on.
What kind of dog is it, Mike?
He's a Czechoslovakian wolf dog.
Wow, I've never heard of such a thing.
They were bred in the 1950s. It was the Czechoslovakian military breeding program.
Oh wow, so military working dog.
So they bred wolves with working line German shepherds.
Wow.
And then in the 80s it became a pedigree. So it looks like a European wolf.
Yeah.
He acts like a wolf. He's he's that sort of lone wolf, typical hard work in the beginning.
Yeah.
You have to put a lot of time, but he's just a great dog.
Gosh, that reminds me, I must write this down for the book that's coming up. But I remember on exercise in Australia, and I met a Canadian sergeant or sergeant major. He was in the Australian Army. He told me back in Canada, they actually had 2 wolves as pets. They raised them from little, and he said nature, like every now and then they go away and kill things, like every month or two, and they just get on the phone to all the neighbors and say, listen, the boys are out, or whatever I don't know if they're boys or girls, but there's 2 of them. They're out, so lock up your sheep because they're out there. And he had a really synergistic relationship, but he had 2 wolves as pets on their farm in Canada, and it was an interesting nature little glimpse there.
And the North American wolves, I mean, they're huge.
Yeah,
they are. I mean, the European ones are much smaller, but the North American ones, I mean, they've got paws like the size of like 2 hands. I mean, they're huge. And people end up breeding them with dogs, and a lot of them get put into shelter because people can't. They want them for the look and what have you.
It wouldn't happen in a village, would it? That would be a very useful thing to have around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on. Let's get back to. I digress. Sorry. Let's get back to the retreats.
The retreats. So that came around. A friend of mine said to me, Mike, I want to do what you do. And it's a friend of trade. I've known him like over 30 years. We've trained together. We've been to Japan. He says, I want to do exactly what you do. Carnivore, to go through all the breath work, like the training you do. He said, if I pay for it, if we book somewhere in the country, somewhere, can we go away for a month?
Brilliant.
So I said, well, yeah, a great idea, but I think a month is going to be quite hard to do. But maybe we could do something. We go away to bring the dog. We'll go and eat and train and hike and what have you. And I'll go through all the stuff maybe for like a week or so. So I started looking into places to rent out, and again, this was for years I've been trying to do. I had 2 projects in Switzerland that sort of fell through. Let's say a similar thing. Anyway, and there's a deeper story to this, but I won't go into. We haven't got the time. Anyway, so I started searching places and I thought, well, if I can do this with one, I can do this for a few people because I'm not a chef, but I know how to cook. I know the benefits of doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I know how to do all that. Training a lot of people. That's I mean, of course, I'm I use that. So I started looking at bigger and bigger places.
Yeah.
And then I found a number of places in the Highlands, which were all former hunting lodges that were just also all in the most spectacular mountainous environment, remote. And then I just thought, sod it. I'm just going to book this place.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. If no one turns up, I'll just have an expensive week away with the dog.
Yeah.
And that's how I did it. I booked the place, and there was a few hurdles within that, but it just came from that. And so what I do on the retreats is it's in the retreat I've got at the moment. It's most beautiful, one of the most remotest glens in the Scottish Highlands.
Wow.
Former hunting lodge. The last Tsar of Russia was there on a big hunting estate.
Wow.
And it's just basically a reflection of what I do.
Yep.
So we get up in the morning, we hydrate, we do some breath work. I go all the stuff we've been talking about, explaining why we're doing that. Because what I want to do is that I want to give people not just the experience for when they're there, but stuff that they can take away to then implement. This is not a tick in the box of gone there for my weekly detox. It's like how to improve your life, for the next few weeks, for the next years, etc.
Well, human development goes back to what we said at the start.
Yeah. And then we we eat, we do some training, smart stuff. The stuff that I do, lots of band work, lots of stuff that everyone can do, because I don't know who's going to come.
Yeah.
If there's someone who's elderly, which I had on the first one, someone who's got injuries, I have to work with all of that.
Yeah.
So do all that. We do lots of walking, hiking. We eat a lot. We eat a lot of the best food that I can get, the best meat that I can get locally and from the farms I use down here.
Yep.
Go through all things about what I'm cooking this way. We eat loads, chill, chat, interaction.
Yeah.
All that stuff. More walking, more eating. It's pretty much a there's very limited Wi-Fi there, so it's almost like a
digital detox,
social media, detox, as well.
Yeah.
And we do that for for a week. And I'm not strict. I'm not one of these strict carnivores. It's not just meat, salt, and water. I'm a little bit more sort of like open, but it is very, very high protein.
Yep.
Great quality food, and that's it. And I do everything. I do all the cooking. I do.
Chef, cook, and bottle washer.
Yeah. Like, well, the thing is, I do get them to help me with, but there's dishwashers there, but I get them to everyone. The thing is that you don't necessarily, as when you're developing a group, you don't need to, generally you don't need to tell people, because people just sort of like
jump in.
No, yeah, and again, it's not. I'm not there I'm not there delivering a course.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing it with, I'm just sharing some knowledge, and we're just like a little team.
Nice.
That's how I try to look at it.
It sounds amazing, really does. I love, again, the way you teach is quite unique, and I've interviewed a lot of people. And back to your Atkins referral of a few minutes ago, the first podcast was Jason Kelton, who was Atkins nutritionist scientist. But I love the way you teach. It's very what's the word? You're empowering. You're showing you're leading by example. That's it. It's you do as I do, not do as I say. So your retreat sounds phenomenal, and I love the. I've got a different picture than you have, because you got the hunting lodge. I'm picturing the OSS days back in the Scottish Highlands, when Fairbairn and Sykes were teaching the or Nancy Wake and everybody else that went behind enemy lines, because they were there as well.
Well, interesting talking about that is that I had a client when I was in Switzerland, and it came up, his surname came up as Stirling.
No.
So I met him and his wife and his kid, and his name was Archie Stirling. So me being sort of like trying to make a joke, and I said to him, I said, was Stirling named after you? Like and he says, and he said to me in this, I remember as if it was yesterday, like cut straight through me, and he says, I am the Laird of Stirling. So he was David Stirling's, he must be his nephew.
Wow.
So, and every time I go to the Highlands, every time I go to do the retreat and come back, I pass the castle. And I just always remember asking that question. And to him, it was like obviously like a stupid question, because he just and he says, I am the Laird of Stirling. And it was like, but yeah. But he was really cool. Nice man.
Oh, phenomenal. Look, thank you for sharing the broad brushstrokes of what you do, and you've been very interesting to speak to on that, and the way you've answered the questions, and yeah, a real example of that embodiment of what you do. I love watching the videos, and if I can make it over there, I'll be booking on the course, because that sounds right up my alley. It's about 40 million degrees here in Perth today, so I'd love a bit of coolness. Love the shirt as well. We talked before. I hope the shirt project kicks off, and I'll be one of the first to order as well. It'll be in the front with the video intro that I do, but if someone's listened to here and